start there.
Perfect. Thank you, Doug.
So I should not be I don't know. He said
He's not coming. He was out of town.
Carl. So I moved to Carol for so they can put on there Carl's kids.
You get what I'm saying on that?
Knights of the Round Table, or the square rectangle table.
I want to call the meeting to order. Good morning, everyone. We have several things on the agenda today that we'd like to discuss. I want to welcome you all here, both sportsmen, staff members. We've got some distinguished guests that we're going to talk to today and going to introduce today. Before we get started, in the actual body of the meeting, we want to start our meetings like we always do with invocation and pledge of allegiance, and we're going to ask Jeff Eaton to deliver the invocation, and then the Commissioner Knott will lead us in the pledge.
Let's stand together, please. We'd like to pray for, connected to the commission and the office here is Rich has a friend having brain surgery today, a tumor removed. His name is Travis Sims. So if you would pray for Travis. And then Brian Clark, our deputy commissioner, his mother had a heart attack and had surgery and is recovering. And my conversation with Brian is that she's recovering well, but her name is Peggy, Miss Peggy. So let's remember them in prayer, okay? Father, thanks for a new day, a new chance. We thank you for creation. Our prayer today is because of that. We're here because of that. We respect what you've given us, what you've made, and we are stewards. Hold us accountable in that to what you've given to us, and we enjoy and we watch over. We take that seriously, and Lord, we accept our appointment to that, representing our state, but more importantly, giving you glory for what you've given us. We pray for Travis, his family today. The surgeon is gifted and skilled, and we pray for him or her. Lord, when it comes to the work that is to be done in that surgery, we pray for Miss Peggy and her recovery, and strengthen Brian as he cares for his mother. Just thank you for the chance to serve. It's in the name of Jesus I pray. Amen.
Amen.
This time, would you join me in the pledge for the flag? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioners. You may be seated. A couple of housekeeping issues before I turn the meeting over to the Commissioner. I want to remind everybody, if you have a cell phone, please either silence it or turn it completely off. If you must take a call, please exit the room and make a call, and then come back and join us again. One other housekeeping issue, if you notice the mic has been moved a little bit. We're going to change a little bit of the format. We're still going to allow public comments, but we're going to try to sum that up at the end of the meeting in the interest of time. Please silence those phones, and that'll help us during the meeting. I want to turn it over to the Commissioner for some comments and some introduction of some people, as well as presentations. Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a special guest here today, and oftentimes we have a multitude of people that come in, and I'd like y'all to give a warm welcome to our new Cabinet Secretary, Mike Berry. Thank you. I've had the opportunity to chat with Mike a few times about different subjects. He has a passion for Kentucky and passion for tourism. He's got a great personality. He's a good listener. He's going to be somebody great to work with the Department of Fish and Wildlife. I'm going to allow Mike to tell you a little bit about his background, but in just one theme today, let's all help him be successful in his job. It's overwhelming, I'm sure, to him right now. He's got 14 agencies to take care of, and we're trying to help him with Fish and Wildlife, but he's got 13 other arenas that he plays in. So, Mike, if you'd say a few words about yourself.
Certainly.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, and members of the Commission, guests. Thank you so much for having me here today. You are correct. I am learning the spectrum of the Tourism, Arts, and Heritage Cabinet. Last week I was at the Artisan Center in Berea, and they were talking about blown glass and some contemporary art that they were putting on a display. And then yesterday I was in a meeting where we were talking about adventure tourism and a little about chronic wasting disease. So tourism runs the gambit. But I'm excited about this opportunity. Little background for me is I am a Kentucky native. I grew up in Louisville, went to Wagner High School in Louisville, graduated from Georgetown College, just up the road here. My first job out of college was in the governor's office, Governor Martha Lane Collins. And back then, governors couldn't succeed themselves. And so at the end of the administration, I took a job as an event manager with the Kentucky Derby Festival. A gentleman by the name of Dan Manchett, who taught me lots about being an outdoorsman. Probably wished he would have taught me a lot more if he knew I was going to end up in this position. But I worked as Dan's number 2 then for about 10 years. When he passed away suddenly in 1997, I became the president and CEO of the Kentucky Derby Festival. I retired October 1st of 2019. 10 weeks later, I came out of retirement when the governor called and asked if I would be Secretary of Tourism, Arts, and Heritage. And it has been a joy in these last 7 weeks to get to know the cabinet. I want to thank the commissioner for including me and the staff here. I've met with them once, and also I've had many opportunities to interact with them. I was at the opening of the Shawnee Park boat ramp on a cold Friday morning, but again, exciting things that the cabinet is involved in, especially through the Fish and Wildlife Agency. I wanted to recognize a couple of folks that are on our staff here. Evan, you all know Evan. He's usually here at most of the meetings. Evan is on our legal team, and he keeps me apprised of what's going on legally in your agency. Also, we have with us this morning, and this is her first visit out here, Sarah Cronin is our new general counsel for the cabinet, and we're looking forward to, as a staff, working with you all and serving Fish and Wildlife. Frank Gimley would have been here today. Frank's got the flu. We have put him on waivers and say, please stay far away from us until you are not sick anymore. So he sends his regrets. Again, anything we can do from the cabinet to be helpful. And I sure personally appreciate all the support that I've gotten from you, Commissioner, your staff, Mr. Chairman, and from the commission members. It makes our job a whole lot easier. Thank you.
Thank you again for your enthusiasm and willingness to come over here. We really do appreciate that. I see a lot of friendly faces out there. It's always good to see our R3 staff, and got a good representation from all of our divisions here today. I want to give a couple of other special thank yous. This week I've had the pleasure to work with Harry Carlos for 3 days. He's just researched. He does what Harry does. He's working hard for us. He's been working on CWD night and day. He went downtown and represented us this week, and just a special thanks to him for his hours at night, his weekends, and the multitude of things that he brings here. So thanks, Harry. Carl and our Dr. Kleiner, Mr. Chairman, and Doug Morgan yesterday were here, and we went downtown. We met with several legislators. We had a really good day, and I thank you all for your time. These commission meetings are just a portion of what these volunteers do for the agency, and we really do appreciate each of you all. Carl, this time I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. You're going to make your presentations, or you want to make those presentations now? Or you want to do
We
those
will.
later?
Jenny, do you have the certificates? Yes.
We've got some presentations to make today, and the commissioner would like to do those. He knows of the volunteerism and some of the great things that have been done on the department's behalf, and he wants to make a couple of the presentations at this time.
Susan, you mind come up?
And with Gabe Jenkins, everybody knows Gabe.
We'd like to recognize Susan and Church Softly. They have both been very instrumental in our R3 branch. For for them in the Serve to Conserve Award. This year, they allowed the R3 branch to access their Franklin County farm for UK mentor hunt, allowing 7 new hunters on the property for a weekend. In addition, they've allowed numerous other accesses to their property. Susan has been a mentor to many new hunters and has worked to promote the mission of the agency far beyond her job duties. We greatly appreciate her efforts here in I&E, but also her willingness to help us further the cause, and we thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
You got one more there, Gabe.
Okay, you got it.
I got this one.
Okay.
We have another Serve to Conserve award, but before I present that, to our R3 initiative we have here, you wouldn't believe how many department employees we have that open up their land, their family farms, their neighbors' properties, and they take mentors to the field. I recently had the opportunity to review that. We didn't have a few people that opened up their land and their time. We had dozens of people that participated in this program, and many of them are our employees, many of them are their neighbors. So we're really thankful for you all and for what you do. It helps us to achieve our mission, but you all don't get any credit for that. So thank you, and share that with the others. Sure appreciate it. Our next Serve to Conserve award is for a guy named Ron Foltz. Ron shared thousands of wildlife photos over the past several years for the department to use for outreach and marketing. His love for the outdoors and Kentucky's wildlife shines through in his outstanding photography and selection of natural subjects. This morning we recognize Ron's generous contributions of his talents and passion to help us keep connected to the outdoor community. Thank you, Ron. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. You know, the value of the gift of volunteerism can't be overstated. I know, having met the secretary, I believe he can tell you, as the director of the Derby Week Festival, I believe you had about 4,000?
Yes, sir.
4,000 volunteers that helped him conduct that quite successful Derby Week. And I would say he would say that he could not have gotten along without those 4,000 volunteers. So those people who dedicate the gift of volunteerism, thank you so much. I just got notification from one of our sportsmen's group that they have completed about 8 projects on behalf of the commission and the department, and we're going to share you with that maybe at the March meeting. Can't express enough our thanks, both from the commission and from the department, for that gift of volunteerism. It can't be measured. It's an unmeasurable dedication. The next item on our agenda today is some discussion items that we're going to go over. And I want to give some credit where credit is really due. Deputy Commissioner Brian Clark worked countless hours to help satisfy many of the concerns of the commission, many of the concerns of sportsmen. Even our accounting and our attorneys contributed to helping us revise or to come up with this new quarterly meeting format that we're going to now go over with you and discuss a little bit. And I want to give credit to Deputy Commissioner Clark, even though he's not here today because of sickness in his family. He has spent a considerable amount of time preparing this presentation today, so he's not going to be able to be here and give that presentation, but we're going to give an abbreviated version of that. The Commissioner has voluntarily said he would give us an overview of that, and I'm going to try to do likewise. But I want to give some credit to Brian Clark for all the hard work that he's done. Change sometimes is difficult and scary for us to undergo, but the things that we are going to try in this new format, and understand I said try because we can always tweak this or change some things about the new format, are going to affect us all, I think, in a positive manner. Change is scary, and we've already had some people that I've talked to express some fear of change or how's this going to affect us. I think after we get into this a little way, we're going to see it's going to be good both for the sportsmen by giving you more time to make public comments and more time to examine some of the issues before the commission. It's going to help us save money and in this time of belt tightening for our budget. Saving money is very important to us all. So I want to encourage you to give this thing a try, and we're gonna make this work. And I think we'll all look back and say, boy, I'm glad we changed that format a little bit. It's made it better for the sportsmen. More time to comment, more time to examine issues, and get in touch with their commission members about their concerns. And I think we're going to find that really good. So, Commissioner, do you want to start by going over your part?
Thank you all. This theme was developed and designed as sportsmen and sportswomen first. We talked to the commission about things that we could improve upon, and I've got a little tidbit of what really each person at this table has asked me to do in the last year. I want you to keep in mind that these processes are going to be virtually the same, except we're going to have 2 meetings in one day. I'll go back to this in a few minutes, but last year, 2019, we had 9 meetings. 4 of those meetings were redundant. We had the same meeting 4 times, or 2 times, 4 meetings. That makes sense to you. We had a committee meeting, then we turned around and we had a commission meeting. We're still going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to bring the commission in, and we're going to have a full commission meeting, followed by what was a committee meeting, and we'll explain that in a minute. So since I met Harry Carlos, he keeps saying, you know how long it takes me to drive here from Paducah? And I know exactly now. I think I actually know the exact mileage. So he asked me, how can we be more efficient with his time? Great question. Great question. Brian Fisher, passionate about everything we do here, probably more passionate about wildlife than anything. And so when we selected committees, he won't serve on the wildlife committee. And working through the committee process, we'd ask Brian to sit over to the side. So each member can participate. Ralph asked for more time because he wants to meet with sportsmen. Not only does he want to meet with sportsmen, he wants to talk through things. That's his style. You guys know that. You work with him. Kenny asked for a different room arrangement. That's a different story, but I want to prepare you for that. We want to face the crowd. We want you all to interact face to face. He also wants more time to survey his agenda. I've had this discussion with Kenny over and over. Kevin Bond, 5th District, when they get together, they get together. They have 5, 10, sometimes 20 groups that show up for one meeting, very well attended. They vote. They tell Kevin initiatives they'd like to see. Give Kevin the opportunity to come back here, not just 30 days, but an opportunity to come back here with good information in a timely manner. Jeff said to me, we need 2-year reg cycles. 2-year reg cycles. Not possible with all things, but we do know annually and on our biennium what we have to address. For example, finance. We have 4 quarters. We have an annual report. We have a biannual report. So there's 6 pieces. We'll plug that into this process. I'll show you how that's going to work. Paul wanted fewer days off work. He gets 2 vacation days per year. And he has quite a drive to get here as well. He has a hectic job, a lot of stress, and we owe him a little more time to deliver agendas and items. Doug Morgan goes to every meeting in the 8th District. He knows every Dairy Queen, every hole in the wall. He knows places that I never even heard of in the 8th District. He invests a lot of time, a lot of volunteer hours to the Department of Fish and Wildlife. And so if he's going to go attend 30 or 40 club meetings, he definitely needs more time. Carl tries to help me in every way to be successful. And we've talked about budget. We've talked about a number of our challenges in the future. Carl says, how can we save money and still work together? A lot of phone calls between the two of us, but he's asking me to tighten things up here, and he says he wants to do it for the commission. Less lodging, less travel, and just certainly less confusion. So, if you look on the board, this is pretty much what we've always done. We're just writing it down so we can explain it. So if something's introduced, President Nybert there in the back, President Nybert, I told you I'd give you a shout out. He wants to know how this process is going to work. How does something land on an agenda? It's vetted. It's always been vetted. Same way, you make a phone call, call your district commissioner, contact Brian Clark. It's up for consideration. We may do a survey for that particular item. Meeting one is just what we would call a committee. We're going to talk about things in advance. We're going to bring it into meeting one. We're going to discuss it. We're either going to table it, survey it more, pass it on to the commission. Meeting two, again, you could consider this a committee meeting. We're going to have a discussion. We're going to formalize a motion. We're going to table it. We're going to move forward. Meeting three, full commission. What we have here today. All the members will participate. We'll vote on it. You pull up the next slide for me. It's a little bit difficult to see. She can make it a little larger.
They can get it, look at the internet. Is that okay?
I'm going to start with finance. We have 4 quarters that we're going to deal with. This actually gives Lisa a little bit more time to do a financial report. So we'll talk about first quarter in November. Gives her plenty of time. Second quarter of March, third quarter of June, fourth quarter of September. September, she's going to go over annual report and her biannual budget. That's the simplest one I can think of. A lot of this stuff, it's like clockwork. We can plug it in. Mike, you asked for agendas to be posted online. We're going to post agendas online well in advance. I'm going to work on a year in advance. So if you have a passion for deer hunting and you want to come to our meeting, we're going to discuss it. What formerly known as a committee meeting. We're going to discuss it in June. Full commission vote on it in September. So if you look at the colors, we can plug each one of these initiatives in. Paul Wilkes said, I'm going to need 1 big meeting per year to take care of fisheries. March discussion, June full commission meeting. This is a 2-part meeting. It's exactly like the commission meeting of the past, except we're going to do 2 meetings in one. We had 9 meetings in 2019. There'll be 5 meetings this year. This is a discussion. The other thing, by statute, we have to have 4 commission meetings in Frankfurt. There's your 4 meetings. 2020. Commission has the authority. It's their meeting. They can call a special call meeting. I'm sure there are going to be circumstances where we'll need to address something quickly. The process won't change. Timeliness won't change. Front half of the meeting is going to be action items. They'll be voted on. It'll be a clear break. Commission will get up. They don't necessarily, they don't have to leave the room, but they can go have a drink. Coca-Cola.
Here's gonna say Scotch.
Start quiet for a minute, everybody's over there thinking on their own.
It sounded pretty good when it did.
So we take a break, we come back in, the action items are over with. It's discussion item time, pseudo committee meeting format. So, in the last probably 6 weeks, I've met 4 directors from other states. 2 directors, when I explain this format to them, that's what we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna do. Pennsylvania explained it to them. That's what they're gonna do in June. They've already worked out this process. They have a commission of volunteers, a lot of key stakeholders that wanna talk about things. We're gonna slow this down to the point that, again, if you wanna talk about deer, come to the Deer and Elk meetings. A lot of you all are taking off work. I mean, Paul, you took off work 9 times last year. And if we travel, he took off the day before. So this is gonna be good for the working person. This is gonna be good for people that wanna participate. Next thing, we're not tied to Fridays. This is the commission's meeting. You wanna meet on Monday evening? You can meet on Monday evening. You can meet on Saturday for participation. We can do that. But again, it's gonna flow through the commission. So this is the commission's meeting. We're trying to be more efficient. We're just trying to communicate with the public. And frankly, I think each person in this room is gonna find value with the process and the way this is slowed down. The posting of agendas in advance, I will do my very best to lay all the things out that we know that we're gonna address. I can't promise you that something won't be added to an agenda, but if it is, it will be timely. It will be timely. You're getting things sometimes 2 weeks. Yes, sir.
Rich, so what you're saying is that, I mean, I've heard questions in the past about always having a meeting on Friday, you know, at 8:30 in the morning where people can't make it that have, you know, a regular job. So we can move these meetings to Monday, Tuesday, and have them possibly at 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening if we
Sure.
need to?
Sure, and we've always had the ability to do that. And let me back up a little bit, because many of you in this room have no idea how historically the commission used to work. The commission committees were created by the commission. The committees would go into their own private rooms and discuss fisheries, wildlife, and admin. You were assigned to those committees. This commission's never done that. But the committees met and they gathered information and data. And somewhere in the last 5 to 10 years, that changed. Committees started coming in because the commission wanted to hear all the facts. And I don't think anybody here really liked attending and sitting on the sidelines. And so, if you all decide you want to meet any day of the week, it's your meeting. We have to give public notice and let folks know. We can still meet outside of Frankfurt, but we're required by statute to meet here 4 times.
Rich,
Yes, sir.
is that meeting required to be recorded or minutes taken or anything like that?
Historically, we've always kept minutes, but it hasn't been required to be recorded. We've been doing that. Jessica, do you know when we started that process? Recording our meetings. Do you remember when we started?
I've done it through guys in here, but I've been here for years. I'm not sure if they're not long before that, but we've always had minutes.
We've always had audio,
Yeah.
but video recording, it's been a few years.
So if we have a meeting, a committee meeting in Louisville, it doesn't have to be recorded or in any format, minutes taken or anything
No,
like
but it's
that?
been a process for clarity. Recording,
Recording is not required, minutes are required. for
Right.
committees.
so you can go back. I have minutes from years and years ago. One of the first meetings here, I think I read something about rabbit season 1957. So we have data, but you can go back and listen to the actual audio. So
Okay.
that's another way that we're working
Good.
on transparency.
So, don't want to stop us too much, and I'll let you continue.
Okay.
That's okay.
Well, I'm almost finished. So this will consolidate regulations. So if we're having a meeting monthly, for example, we're gonna send things downtown, basically Johnny Cash one piece at a time. So I'd rather go downtown with a litany of things that we're gonna take care of and be able to explain to that regular review committee what we're doing, what we're trying to do. So that's gonna help us organize. And I don't think you all have as many questions about what's going downtown. The next thing in this format is we're gonna type the motion on this board. And so when you make a motion and you approve it through the full commission, it's gonna be on the board. Take a picture of it if you want. But you'll know exactly what we're addressing. Quarterly format. This is gonna help our directors achieve Fish and Wildlife Mission activities on a more consistent basis. I'm asking Chris Garland to get ready for a meeting every 6 weeks. Every 6 weeks. And so it's really tough on executive staff to prepare for all these meetings. Right now, I'm gonna give him a lot of work. Chris is gonna have a lot of work to plug in all these requirements, because he's gonna have to know when we pass a regulation for deer season. I think this is gonna be one of the best communication pieces that we've done here in a long time to communicate with sportsmen and sportswomen. I think if somebody's passionate and they wanna know what we're doing, they're gonna be able to get on our website, they're gonna be able to check out our agenda, and they're gonna understand what we're trying to achieve. I'm big on surveys, I'm big on data collection. I have seen individuals come to a commission meeting and make a recommendation, and that recommendation pass. When an individual, one person, comes here, I think if we can collect good data, we can do a survey. These are simple, quick fixes where we can get thousands of people to participate, and we're not catering to a single person or a single person's initiative. I think that's gonna help us work with sportsmen, sportswomen too. And in closing, this is the commission's meeting, and you all can change this format. If we have weaknesses, we'll work on them. We'll take care of business. But this is my pledge to sportsmen and sportswomen. 2020, kind of a corny cliche. 2020, what's your vision? My vision is to be more efficient here, to communicate with everybody that's passionate about what we do. We care about what we're doing, and thanks to our volunteers, we have the opportunity to do this. You won't feel the full effects of this meeting format, in my opinion, until June. Because we're not gonna have a full agenda in March for the full commission format. So you really won't see this format in action until June. Does anybody have any?
I got a comment. As you know, I've been coming to these meetings for 10 years plus. I spent a lot of years out there before I come here. And it's always been a systemic problem with the commission on motions. Often is the time a motion is made and it's understood to be made one way, and what the reality of it is different. And I think putting that motion on the board is the best idea I've heard since I've been here.
We'll give you credit for it, Doug. I will add one thing in our discussions, senior staff. One of the chief duties of the commission is to approve research projects. And I feel like that's a derivative of finance. And so going forward, finance, our budget director, Ms. Cox, she will handle research projects. So we're gonna streamline that to her, and it takes your all's approval for us to do research. And there's been some confusion about that in the past. So Lisa's willing to do that. I think Lisa and finance, it starts this discussion as far as what we're trying to achieve here, and you can see how hers fits. We have so many pieces of the pie for wildlife and fisheries, I couldn't fit them on this board. But we can go ahead and start creating an agenda, and I think you all will be able to understand the agenda, understand what we're trying to achieve. Folks, we're not changing the way we do business here. We're gonna be more efficient. Any other questions from commission members?
You know, thank you, Commissioner. I believe Brian Clark would be happy with the job that you did in his presentation, so thank you very much. I want to combine the next two discussion items here, the elimination of committees and expanded use of working groups, kind of together as I discussed that, and clear up a couple of things and a couple of concerns of a few sportsmen who have expressed some concern. I said earlier, change is sometimes difficult. As we get older, and I'm right there, change from what we've gotten used to a format is sometimes a little scary, and we have doubts about them. One main thing I'm doing today is ask for a little patience from everybody. The commission will be able to tweak these. The commissioner and the department can have their input into how this new format goes, and sportsmen as well. I talked to a sportsman here before this who's a president of a group, and the elimination of committees, when he saw that on some of this agenda, was a little scary. And I want to assure you that, first of all, we're going to keep committees through at least March as they are intact already, and we're going to keep those committees that can still work and still receive information and concerns from sportsmen. But the formation of these working groups, I'm in hopes you will see as time goes on, will be much more efficient, it'll be much more productive for sportsmen, and it'll be easier on commission members. As the commissioner has said, when we have a committee meeting, we have guys sitting here, maybe 4 guys on that committee, and the rest of the commissioners are part of the audience. They don't have much participation capability. With this lower half, would you put that slide back up of how we're going to do the format? The lower half of this is virtually, blow that up for me a little bit. The lower half of this is virtually, come on up a little bit more for me. This way. Nope. There we go. Come on up a little more. The lower half of this is virtually a committee meeting. It's the same committee meetings, except all the commissioners will be able to participate. So you'll still have your committee meeting format, but everybody will be participating. Our working groups that we're going to have will be more concentrated on the issues that are facing both the commission and the sportsmen. So when we form working groups, we might be able to take someone who is formerly on fisheries and he has a wildlife issue, or the sportsman in his district have a wildlife issue and he wants to be on that working group. So they will still be able to contact, those working groups will still contact the shareholders of the sportsman or whoever's concerned about that particular issue, make contact with them, and they will be able to make contact back and forth about those issues. So sportsmen do not feel left out or shut out of commission business. So I wanted to reassure a couple, and I've talked to a couple this morning, that I think in the long term they're going to find that working groups will help concentrate their efforts more toward sportsmen's concerns, and they're going to have a much longer time to vet these issues before them by having, instead of a 30-day notice and the agenda being posted a couple of days before because we didn't get all that committee information together. I think you're going to find that a minimum of 90 days and maybe even 180 days are going to give sportsmen's groups longer to contact the commission, who I will remind you have telephone numbers, have their email addresses posted. You can email the commission. You can commission members. You can email the department, the commissioner himself, to express those concerns. So you're going to have 90 days now to concern yourself over an issue. So I think you're going to find it much better. And I want to assure you that by eliminating committees, we are not shutting out the participation of sportsmen in the concerns that we all have for issues. So I think if you'll give it a little time, you're going to find this better. And if we need to tweak this along the line, we'll tweak it after having comments from the commission, having comments from the department, and comments from sportsmen about, would you consider doing this or that in order to help that. So I want to reassure both the department individuals, the cabinet, and the sportsmen that we're going to try a method that increases this real work toward transparency that the commissioner has been so good at since he has come into leadership for the department. Transparency is extremely important to him. It's extremely important to the commission. The sportsman input is extremely important to both of those entities also, and I think you're going to find this working groups that you'll still be able to contact and get in touch with, and then virtually a committee meeting format, even though we'll be dissolving that, will still be the same. So things are not going to change, just a little bit of this format, and we're going to slow down this process a little bit so it'll be much friendlier to sportsmen about those issues. The commissioner also explained to you that in the event that we have some emergency issue, we can have a special call meeting. We'll do it the very same way. And I'm going to survey the commission about other times, other than maybe Friday morning, because that's been an express concern of sportsmen, can we have this thing at some time other than 8:30 on Friday mornings? So we're gonna work on that too. Now, the only thing we have to be concerned about is, are we gonna have enough time? Since we're making this into, 2 meetings into one, if we start this thing at 6 o'clock on, Tuesday night, we might be here till midnight if we're not careful. So if we streamline this process, we will be able to shorten these meetings, even though Dr. Carlos will tell me not to be so wordy here. We can streamline these meetings, but we just don't wanna keep you all up until midnight before you go to work the next day. So I'm asking everybody to give this a shot and see if we can make this work, and we'll still accept the input from sportsmen, from the divisions, and from commission members, as well as the commissioner's office, about how we can change these for the better. We are here to change this for the better of sportsmen and for the department and how we operate and for the cabinet. So our heart is in the right place. Give us some time to see how this thing goes, and bear with us, and we're gonna try to make this thing work. We're gonna have public comment at the end of our session. So don't leave me. We're gonna let you make those comments here at the end of the session. So we haven't forgotten. So bear with us as we start this process, and I believe that we're all gonna look back happily that we changed this and made it easier for the commission. We've saved some money, and we've given longer for sportsmen to make comments about these. So thank you. The chair will entertain old business, any old business before the commission at this time. Dr. Carlos.
I have some old business about fencing for captive service facilities. Y'all know we have discussed this before, and this is just a clarification. Many of you have seen the draft reg, and what we have voted for in the past is to have double fencing on all new and expansion of captive service facilities. The resolution that the regulation that's being put forward is to it's about 5 pages of describing how to build a fence, and then recently we have decided to clarify what we're going to do with existing facilities that aren't expanding, and we're going to have a electric fence placed around the existing fence. This seems to be agreeable with all parties concerned. The language, I'll be happy to read it if you want. All current and captive service facilities and grandfathered non-commercial captive service facilities shall, within 12 months of the passage of this regulation, install a 2-strand electric fence on the outside of the perimeter fence. The 2 strands shall be offset from the main fence no less than 12 inches, be at a height of 18 inches and 30 inches off the ground. Both strands shall be electrified at all times with an energizer that is capable of electrifying the distance of the fence within the manufacturer's recommendations. So that's just going to be added at the end of the description of the new double fence, and that's on page 6, inserted between line 13 and 14. All of y'all may not have this draft. I apologize for that. I'm not going to read 6 pages. Robert's Rules of Order prevents reading a 6-page document in advance. So this clarified version, Mr. Chairman, I believe requires a vote, and I will move that we add this to the 6 existing pages of data on fences.
Second that.
So we have a motion and a second on the clarification of some issues concerning fencing. Do you want to read that one more time, the clarification point, so all the commission members understand? Are we going to have any more discussion about it, or do you want to put that on?
I'd like to make one comment if I might.
Okay, yeah.
I only, coming from a farm background, I only have one thing there that I don't have a complaint about any of that, except for the fact that if a person has built their the fence on their property line, how then do they place electric fence over on the adjoining property?
The people from agriculture told me that they thought that overhang could be worked out since it wasn't touching the ground.
Okay, so they're gonna extend it off of their fence?
They're
and
gonna
not be-
extend it off their current fence.
Okay.
So we're talking about just a few feet off of that fence,
Yeah,
right?
12 inches off, 12 inches off that fence, 2 wires up to there, they're 130 inches and 180.
Okay, I can just see somebody coming back and saying, I built my fence, original fence right down the property line, now how do I place a fence 2 feet
2 or 3
overhanging
feet over on somebody's
over on somebody else's property? And I just see that as a, or maybe if it can be put on the inside, you know, but that just keeps their deer away from the fence. I mean, is that a possibility that it,
I have, what we're trying to do with the electric fence is to provide a backup and to prevent nose-to-nose contact. And I'm not an expert on fencing, but I'd say if the electric fence was on the inside, it would prevent the inside deer from putting their nose to the fence where they could touch the other one.
I think it's better on the outside, but if it was in the provision where it could be on the inside,
If it's a property line.
if it's a property line
Yeah,
issue,
yeah.
that's the only thing I see that would,
But Ag
it's
said
gonna
they
come
can-
back to you.
Ag apparently has talked to them,
Uh-huh.
and they're okay with this.
Okay.
Well, in a rural setting with a line fence, trees and a line fence between property owners is certainly more than 23 inches anyway. I mean, it's not unusual to have a tree and a line fence 3 foot thick.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't see a problem.
the current regulations, and again, I'm not an attorney or expert on it, but I believe that current regulations call for a clearing on both sides of the fence. But that certainly doesn't help a 50-foot oak tree, and neither will double 8-foot
Sure.
fence. So they have to inspect the integrity of it. But for the audience, what basically what we have done, the commission has voted that all new captive cervid facilities have a double fence, and there's a description of the double fence. And all expansions of existing captive cervid facilities have a double fence, and all existing cervid facilities have an electric fence added to their current fence. So that,
So we have a motion from Dr. Carlos for clearing up some of the wording in what we have already passed. It has been seconded. Is there any further discussion on the clarity that we're gonna add to our already passed provision for fencing? Then all in favor of the motion signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously.
Good job, Harry.
Dr. Morgan, Mr. Morgan.
It's my dad.
Yeah, right. I thought about him this morning. Any other old business before we move to new business?
I have some.
Got some old business.
If it's
from
okay,
Commissioner
Mr.
Morgan.
Chairman, I would like to have Paul Wilkes give a brief update on the Cave Run handicap fishing pier.
Mr. Wilkes, are you here and prepared to do that? That's old business because that was discussed in previous meetings, so if you would address the commission, sir.
Yes. I'll actually be very brief and then defer some more. So we've continued our discussion regarding the Cave Run fishing pier, kind of continuing to reach out to the Forest Service as well as Representative Rogers' office. And they're engaged on the issue and interested, but the most work on this has not come from fisheries, but from engineering. So Michael, do you mind sharing a?
I've got plans on there, can you pull them up? Yeah, so we've gone out and done a site survey and collected the water data to see if fishing pier would work here. This is at Muskie Bend on Cave Run Lake. And so the site does set up well for it. I mean, the parking lot's existing, it's pretty low and close to the water elevation. And so we go, let's see if I can pull this. Give me the next sheet. So this is what we've come up with the layout, and it's a 50-foot fishing pier, 8 foot wide, and because of the water elevation change on this lake, most of the time we have like a T shape, but we had to here just do just just this section here, the fishing pier, this would be a gangway to get to it. The water elevation will come up 30 feet in a flood event. And so, we have come up at it, the site is doable, and we also have a cost estimate, if you can go to the last sheet. Yeah, but that's just more of the fishing pier itself, but, yeah, that's my sheet. So the cost estimate we've come up with so far is about $100,000. And so that's, I mean, Paul can talk to that more, but really, that's gonna be the question, is the funding, where's the funding gonna come from? We don't necessarily have the federal grants, to pay for that, so.
Is it possible for you to email that to me and the rest of the commissioners?
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you very much.
Paul, you want to comment on the
Yeah.
cost aspect?
First off, thanks to Michael and Toby, they did a great job of just busting that out, getting out there on Cave Run Lake, and I think
That's great.
it's a goodwill on behalf of the department to say, hey, it is Forest Service property, but we're engaged, we've got anglers that want access, and we'll do what we can to partner with it, and this is a good start. So I think next steps, we revisit with the Forest Service, say, look, we know there's some issues with the lake level fluctuations that make this difficult, make it a little more expensive than our typical fishing pier, but we're willing to help you if you can find a way to do it. And so hopefully with political partners as well, we can find some funding and find a way to make it happen.
Well, I appreciate your hard work and you all as well. I think that those veterans and sportsmen that gave a lot of things for this country deserve a place to fish. And it's a noble cause and I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your work, and
Yeah.
we'll keep going.
All right, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Paul. And I want to applaud Commissioner Morgan's attempt at trying to get so many people involved in helping handicap access. I don't think that's the only one that we're concerned about, but I also appreciate engineering and fisheries for their help, and Hal Rogers' office, because he's working diligently to try to make handicap access more available to those who have requested it. So thank you for both of those, and thank you, Commissioner Morgan, for your continued interest in handicap access. Any other old business need to be discussed before we go to new business? Okay. New business, we have proposed revisions to the Hunter Access Area Agreements. Chris, are you going to address that first, or Commissioner, do you want to address that? Chris, Chris Garland, with Division Director for Wildlife, is going to explain to us about the proposed revisions to Hunter Access. This is an information item only. We're not going to have any voting on that today. We're going to pass this on to the commission meeting in March, but he wanted to inform us to get ahead of it a little bit and let this out so sportsmen can kind of assess this and they can look at this too. Chris?
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning. Morning.
We've, we've had our hunter access areas in place for several years now, and over the years, we've kind of got some discrepancies in these. It's a good time to kind of review everything, try to get everything standardized. We'll work with our legal guys to standardize some of the agreement language and the contractual side of things. Standardize that language, define that public access, where access points are, make sure we know those boundaries. We have an affidavit in there signed by the landowners so that this property that they're enrolling, they have the right to enroll, and they have complete control over for access. And then we'll meet with them yearly to review everything, go over maps, make sure everything is still the same. Some of the stuff changes year to year pretty quickly. We're also considering increasing the penalty for default on a contract. Right now it's $2,500. If you default on your contract, we want to increase that penalty to $10,000 per permit awarded. A few of these things, modifications and changes will require reg change as well. One of the things we want to do regulatory, that's all. The previous stuff has been contractual. We can put that in the contract. But some reg changes that'll be needed for this include the baiting. We want to strengthen the baiting regulation and tighten that up in reg to show that not only is baiting, hunting over bait or with aid of bait prohibited, but also that the area is still considered baited 30 days after the removal of bait, and that mirrors the turkey reg, so we'll be consistent with that. We want to have all contracts to be effective that elk season. The contracts need to be signed and executed by July 1 of each year. That keeps us from getting in a period where we're in a rush and trying to get a contract approved and we don't have the boundaries right or we don't have the access right. Kind of slow that down and make sure we've got plenty of time to make sure everything's right. We're required the permits to be issued by August 15th. That matches the timing of the voucher permits and some other permits. There'll be some consistency with that, and that those tags can be transferred once before the start of the hunting. Can only be transferred once before the start of the hunting season. Eliminate multiple transfers of tags that have our guys scrambling and running at the last minute. And then the permits, the landowner permits can only be used for lands enrolled in the property. We'll remove the section where they're allowed to use on adjacent lands.
Questions you all have for Chris concerning kind of a cleanup of the proposed revisions?
I don't have a question, but I have a statement about baiting, and then I'll have a motion. It's legal to bait for deer in the elk zone, so there's some confusion about who's baiting for what, where, and when you're looking at that baiting in the elk zone, you ought to look at the baiting for deer in the elk zone to make sure that we really are baiting for deer and not.
And right now, the way this would be in the contract, on the hunter access area, you wouldn't be able to.
You can't bait
deer.
on our
Right.
stuff anyway,
Yeah.
but you're gonna have the elk regs open anyway. And so I have a motion. The legal staff shall review all contracts relating to elk and make appropriate recommendations to the commissioner. The objective is to come up with a standard agreement. Since we have the elk regs open, the commissioner, we would ask the commissioner to look at other elk regulation suggestions to be included in that and bring that back to the commission.
Everybody understand that motion? Any questions about that motion? Before we ask for a second? You have a question about that motion? Does anybody want to second that motion? This is for clarity, or again, a clarity issue on the elk provision.
I'll second the motion.
Paul has seconded the motion. Have you got that? Y'all got that? Any further discussion on that motion? For the commissioner to bring back to us information about that. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. And then we also want to discuss the proposed removal of are you done with that, Chris, or you
Yes,
have
sir.
other things? Okay. The proposed removal of postseason quota hunts, the provision for addressing elk damage. We can discuss that today, or we could bring it in the form of a motion, but go ahead, Chris, with that.
Basically, we've had in regulation, section 10 is a post-season quota hunt on private lands that was put in place many years ago when we were having some damage issues in the Straight Creek area, among others. And it was a way to allow some hunting, some harvest of those elk after the season. And the drawing was just for people that were in those counties where the elk damage was occurring. And with the elk population and the elk moving and the tags decreasing, and we're not seeing the damage in some of those spots like we did. So, and there's ways to handle the damage and nuisance situation through other avenues of the reg. So we see the kind of time for this reg is kind of passed, and we'd also like to, in the future, address it to a little more standardized system. If we do have these problems come up in the future, a little more standardized way, how we identify what it takes to earn basically a postseason hunt, and how we identify where those areas are and how many tags we give for that. So basically what we request is to remove this section from the elk reg on the postseason hunt.
If I understand correctly, was it not about 10 years ago that this nuisance elk tag system started?
Yes, sir.
About
That's
10 years
right,
ago.
right, yeah.
And you know, we've had so many complaints and concerns from guides and from sportsmen about the harvesting of cow elk, and it's difficult to decide if we have that many nuisance elk at this point. So the desire of the department or the division is to remove this because we're not having the nuisance issue like we may have experienced at one time. And secondly, I will want to remind the commission that the commissioner, in the event that there are nuisance animals, can order the removal or the disposal of a nuisance animal. So we would still have that provision capable to us in the event that we're getting an issue about a particular spot. But to just summarily include 4 nuisance elk, cow elk in the harvest to the sportsman and to the commission seemed a moot point, that maybe we're not having so much trouble with nuisance elk. So that's the whole basis for the removal of that, at this time. Yes, Paul?
I'll make the motion.
Well, I think Harry has,
You already got it.
let me,
Never mind.
let me ask
Two
Harry
motions in a second.
to read. Thank
Three
you,
motions.
Paul, for the motion to
Or the
remove
two.
that, but go ahead. I think you want to specify something. Did you want to discuss that or make a?
Yeah, we've discussed all this before, and I certainly have no objection to Paul making the motion, since I don't have any elk in my area except on the federal pen. But I've written out some things that we have discussed before, and just for clarity, I wanted to add them to this motion. So, I'll move that we remove the postseason quota elk hunt. And I'll further move that when a nuisance elk exists, the first priority is to move the animal. If that is impossible, the commissioner shall issue a permit for the designated elk. Notice I said designated elk and not a bunch of elk. The disposition of all nuisance elk shall be reported to the commission. Meat from the nuisance elk shall be donated to hunters for the hungry. The remainder of the elk shall become property of the Fish and Wildlife Division to be disposed of for the general benefit of the elk program. And the department shall seek suitable changes in regulations or laws so that this can go forward.
Sounds good, Harry.
And Paul, you want to second
Let
that
Harry
motion?
make the motion, and
Harry has made that motion. You have seconded that. Is there any discussion among the commission on removing this postseason quota hunt? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. The commissioner wants to address the commission here for a minute, and then we'll go on to public comment.
So, when I came here, one of the challenges that I faced was law enforcement. We hadn't hired a conservation officer in quite some time. And I'm glad Colonel Gibson's here today. I'll allow him to elaborate on what we're doing with the academy. But we're diligent in filling these vacancies. We've said for a long time we were gonna do it, and we're actually stepping up to the plate. And we don't get the officers we need. And the 2 academies that we have now, we're gonna open up another academy. And so I think they're well on their way, but I wanted him to give an update before the close of the meeting.
So, good morning, gentlemen. Currently, we have the first class that's nearly finished with their training at DOCJT. All 10 recruits are still in there. 1 recruit's already graduated that was already a certified police officer. There are 10 remaining in that class. They have about 4 weeks left now at DOCJT, and then they'll finish up our 6 weeks with us, and they'll be on the road ready to work before the opening day of turkey season. So that was our goal, to get those people with their training officer before the opening day of turkey season. The second group has recently started their first 6 weeks with us. They were hired on January 16th. They'll begin, but I'm sorry to report that I heard this morning that I had 6 with the flu. So the flu spreads quickly in a closed training environment, and I've sent 6 home to rest for a few days. But all is well in that class. We have been reported from the training staff that there's 18 of that class still remaining. We hired 20, so we've had a couple go home, but we had a few alternates that we filled in, so we still are at the number 18. Obviously, the ones that are sick are not been dismissed. They've just been sent home to recover. We'll have to look at what we need to do to address that today. But all in all, that puts us putting 29 officers in the field this year. That's without hiring anyone else. In addition to that, we've hired some retired officers to come back on an interim or part-time basis. We currently have a total of 3 officers serving in that capacity. So after the recruits graduate, and with our return to work guys from the retired status, we'll be operating with 129 officers in the field and 2 administrative staff. That's including our command staff and training staff, of course. That's 129 sworn officers, up from a pretty low number.
90, it was about 90 something at one time.
Yes, sir. We were getting right at 100 officers, including everybody in training and all. And so we also have a boating officer upstairs, a boating education officer that's a retired to return.
So our pledge to get an officer in every county, we're coming closer. and I thank the colonel and the majors for their work. Tell them what we're doing at DOCJT and how much it's gonna cost.
Oh, I'll be glad to. So this training academy was moved from, the first 6 weeks was moved from Camp Webb down to the Department of Criminal Justice Training, for 2 reasons. One, the facilities for training are just superior. Indoor training areas where we're having to train outside, mats, equipment, physical fitness training, indoor running tracks. For this type of year, this is keeping our guys healthier longer. Lodging, DOCJT stepped up to the plate when we talked to the Justice Cabinet and the commissioner over there. They were more than willing to have us come over there and train the part of the academy, the 12 weeks that we do in their facility. They offered us free lodging, which took that burden off of the department, and then they also provided all the meals on their back, not on ours. So the savings just in what I was paying for food for Camp Webb, for hiring cooks, having to do maintenance staff through the I&E to keep all the facilities up and running, and then also just the fact of the lodging itself being included. And then we're closer to medical facilities if someone is injured, because we're right there in Richmond where there's places to take them if they have an injury or something like that. That's also worked out well. So I think that the facility has assisted us in retaining. You know, we have an attrition rate. We always will have an attrition rate. But it seems like we're doing better because of the facility. The training staff has reported that they just feel like in that environment they see other officers going through the same thing that they're going through because some of the rigors of training are difficult, but they see that there's other people in the struggle with them, that they're not alone, and then that the facilities itself has helped us retain some of our recruits this time. So we're very glad to announce that we got 29 right now. That number could drop, of course. There's still weeks and weeks and weeks of training for these officers, but at some point, they'll get in there and get locked in, and hopefully we'll move forward with the 29 we have.
So I would like to request the commission that we send a thank you note signed by the commission to DOCJT, because this is a great deal for the department, and I think it's gonna help us with retention.
Not a problem.
Somebody wanna make that motion? That we
So
send that
moved.
Thank you letter?
Second.
So moved by Dr. Carlos and seconded by Commissioner Fisher. Did you get that?
I did.
All in favor of sending a letter to DOJCT with our thanks, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you, Colonel.
Yes, sir. I'd also like to thank the commission for your all support in the budgetary process of just continuing to push to get officers in the field. The sportsmen across the state that I talk to, and I'm imagining your all's districts are the same. They want officers in the field. They want to talk to our officers, and we want our officers to be that point of education and also enforcement for those counties. So, but thank you all for your all support for our
Well,
district.
thank you on behalf of the commission for all your hard work. I will remind everybody, yesterday, the colonel spent half a day on the Hill too, meeting with legislators and explaining many things about the department. So thank you, Colonel, for your great input.
Yes, sir. Thank you
I'd
very much.
also like to echo thanks to Colonel Gibson for cleaning up the recruitment, retention, and training of new officers. There's been a significant improvement, and I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Colonel.
I got one thing on old business.
Well, we've already,
I mean, new
passed
business.
old
I mean,
business, we got new business.
New business, I'm sorry. New
Go ahead,
business.
Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, I've had several comments about Ohio River and the access and expanding opportunities for the sportsmen down that river. And I would be hopeful that you could set a working group of the commissioners that border the river to look at that.
Everybody understand that? Commissioner Morgan has been concerned about our law enforcement coverage along much of the Ohio River there. So he has suggested, and I think it's a good suggestion, that we form a working group and maybe get some of the sportsmen involved also, for sportsmen who would like to be involved, in assessing the need for and how we can go about better enforcing the game and fish laws along the Ohio. And that working group should be made up, and this goes back to our talk about working groups versus the committee. If we had fisheries and somebody's in Far East Kentucky, not even on the Ohio, it might not be as dear to them as those district commissioners who are along the edge of that river and where that big concern is, to be in that working group. So again, we're going to concentrate the efforts in a work group of people who are passionate about it and who are people who are directly affected by the need for that working group. So if we get that working group together with the sportsmen, we feel like we're gonna be able to get more done. So yes, we'll assign a working group, made up of, if they be so inclined to, of those commissioners whose border the area affected, which in this case is the Ohio River, and we'll get after that right away. So let the record show that we'll assign a working group to that, and then report back to the commission on the success of that working group.
And I'll volunteer to
Can
serve
we-
on
That-
that.
You'll be on that too. And
Gladly.
let's see, who else is on that?
Can we adjust the working group so that the voting power of the people on the working group is directly related to the volume of water?
Well, remember, the working group will not have any voting, they will not have any voting.
Oh, yeah.
The second half of of that that meeting will be that same committee type format, but the working groups will not do any voting as a working group, like the committees do. They'll just bring to the commission meeting, the second half of that commission meeting on that type of committee format, but working groups will not have any voting capability.
I didn't intend to stimulate your loquaciousness by making humorous remarks.
Yeah, that was in jest,
I'm sure.
So, I'm gonna go ahead and preview coming attractions. We'll discuss those commissioners who are on that, if they will be willing to serve. I'd also like for the colonel to be on that working group. Sure. Since he's the head of law enforcement along that thing. And then we'll, after we get that kind of organized, we'll involve sportsmen along that area in that working group to kind of report back and forth to that working group about the things they find.
And-
So that's gonna be, again, this combined effort of everybody and concentrating that working group on a certain area where they can contact the shareholders and that.
Sure.
I
And that's-
think it's really gonna be good.
That's not just law enforcement, that's enhancing opportunities for sportsmen as well.
Sure. That's why I
the whole
wanna
gamut.
involve the sportsmen
Sure.
along the Ohio who are concerned with that area.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have further new business.
Okay?
While we're
Speak up where
talking,
they can hear if you would.
while we're talking about elk, I recently spent 3 days in the elk zone looking at the habitat and so forth. And there's some things that I'd like the commission to put on the agenda and start considering. I'd like to offer a significant reward for the arrest, conviction, and compensation of people poaching elk. I was on a coal mine property that had a guarded gate. I saw 54 elk. I went next to a WMA that borders that coal mine property, and I saw 0 elk. There may be other factors in that, but there may be something there that we need to look at, and pretty soon a $5,000 reward in that area, people will turn in their brother. I'd like the seasonal details to be modified with the objective of growing and maintaining the herd, including the number of limited cows taken. And during my trip over the area, I didn't see enough forage to keep 1 cow alive. So I would like to consider forming teams to burn and make food plots, require landowners with tags to have food plots on their property, partner with food plot companies and conservation organizations to plant food plots. I'd like to disturb the soil with strip disking as recommended by the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. And I would like to remove invasive species. Planting food plots and disturbing the soil will also eliminate the intermediate host for brainworm and may improve overall herd health. So I just wanted to introduce those things for discussion, evaluation, and consideration.
So your second request, we'll address with the division, the wildlife division. The first request, I think, was going to be a combination request of law enforcement, of wildlife division, and of our legal staff about can we do those, all the 3 of those. And I think it's really going to take a combined effort from legal staff to law enforcement about fines, how we can enforce, the legality of confiscation, and those things. We need to consult with legal about that.
Earlier, we voted to open the elk reg. Those things will all be in the elk reg. I just wanted to make sure those things were considered.
Any comments from
Absolutely.
commission members about that?
Can I add something to
Yes,
that,
sir.
Harry? Can we look into having in possession of elk parts?
I've heard rumors that they're shooting the, bulls and selling the antlers. And then also
Poachers, not the people who
Absolutely.
had a tag.
Correct. And also, if you're, you know, there should be something in there with the wanton waste, or if you're shooting the cow elk, I mean, that's definitely wanton waste, but if you're cutting the elk up to eat it, then, you know, you're gonna have in possession, meat, so.
Colonel, you wanna make any comment about this antler thing? Have you heard that through?
Yeah, it's already.
It's already illegal.
Even an antler?
Yeah, what about the antlers, about selling, have you heard that somebody is selling antlers that they're poaching?
We could add that to the reward part.
Okay.
Yeah, that could be researched along with his other two requests.
Because that's
Just
already
so
in
you
place,
know,
but are you?
Harry, there's already a compensation from the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, I think for $1,000 on top of our $1,000. So it's something that wildlife can look at with Rocky Mountain Elk and see if we increase ours, they increase their end.
We have a new Rocky Mountain Elk guy from Kentucky, and I talked to him about, and I actually asked him for a $10,000 reward, but he thought 5 was more reasonable. I think that they'll help us out with it.
Okay, so we can request that, with all of you all get together and kind of look into that.
Hey, Kyle, I want you to speak to the commission about our burn conversation. Just let them know, cause you're acting now on the elk and Gabe was, we understand that dynamic. Tell them that conversation that you had with me. Would you do that? I'd love for them to hear that.
Yeah, so,
Come on up to come on up.
we're gonna ordain you.
Yeah, you're.
All right. I try not to be too nervous here, but so yeah, in the elk country, I'm from there. We all know what it looked like 10 years ago. We've seen significant growth of woody vegetation take over a lot of our mine areas where the elk usually hang out. We have a significant amount of people that can burn in southeast, northeast, and here in Frankfort. We're all ready to burn. We want to try to set back a lot of that vegetation growth in those areas. The only issue that I see with any of it is trying to figure out where, working with the coal companies and landowners to figure out what is released, what is post-mine land use, because if it's phase 1 or phase 2, a lot of that stuff cannot be burned because, the permit from Division of Miner Information may not let them do that. So it's trying to figure out where we can and can't burn, but we've got several teams ready to burn that can make a difference in a lot of our WMA, specifically in Bell County, Leslie County, where Boone Forest lands, Elk Forest, some of those WMAs where we can burn. There's significant property that we can make a difference on there.
Kyle, will Fish and will Forestry Service supply any members, any
Yes, they can.
extra help?
Yes, sir.
burning?
They can help burn. Has to be within 10 miles of the Dan Boone National Forest, and there's significant property that lies within that buffer.
I'm sure we've got volunteer sportsmen who would help. There are groups. I see 2 of them right now shaking their head. Yep, we'll be right there to help. I am sure. Back to this volunteerism. I am sure that we have volunteers, sportsmen, ready to help on burning because they know how important this is.
Have grass rigged, we'll travel.
There we go. So I know we've got sportsmen. So if the time comes that burn areas, we need to be sure we notify sportsmen that if you've got volunteers, and of course, we hope that some of them, we don't want anybody to get hurt,
Right.
but we can contact these groups that'll help us with some of that burning. But I thought maybe Forestry Service could too.
They can definitely help.
Super. There we go back to volunteers.
Nature Conservancy also helps
Yep,
burn.
Nature Conservancy can help you too. That's
They've
great.
got the old Corrigan property, the Cumberland Forest.
Okay, are you gonna continue to look into that and report back to the commission next time on these other issues?
Yes, sir.
Good, perfect.
We also have, just so everyone knows, we've got an interagency burn team meeting coming up late February with us.
Great.
ASCPC, several.
From all the biologists we talked to, this burning may be, and Dr. Carlos's comments about how that will affect, could really help this elk situation, and everybody everybody is on board to help the elk situation, so that's great. And if we can get these volunteers, that'll help too. Dr. Carlos.
Mr. Chairman, I know that later on today that you're gonna have a working group on WMAs, but there's some things that I'd like to get on the record with your patience and permission.
Fire away.
Okay.
Just speak up where they can hear if you would.
I want to preface this by saying that we have some of the best employees in the world.
Amen.
In District 1, we have the best WMAs in the state, but
Careful.
What about the commission?
Careful.
What about
every organization has some things that don't achieve their maximum potential. And for that reason, I would like every WMA to submit a 5-year plan. I want it to be both general and specific. The plan will be reviewed and modified as necessary by the district wildlife supervisor, the chief of wildlife, then submitted to the commissioner, who will discuss it with the commissioner of that district and submit it to the commission. The amended plan will then be forwarded and returned to the WMA. Each year, the WMA supervisor will submit a progress report to the commission and his or her superior. Notation will be made in the employee's record of the quality of the plan and its degree of implementation. Notations will be made in all supervising employees of the WMA manager. The plans and report should include a forestry management plan, conservation projects, farming practices including projected income, yields, and profits, public use and access, an equipment list including the engine hours, service records, and general condition of all equipment, expected equipment needs, and a budget.
Second. I don't know. Yeah, that wasn't a motion at this point. That was a discussion item that goes on the record. I would suggest, with the commission's permission, to examine that list, formalize that list, bring it to a motion and a vote at the March commission meeting to tweak this, if you will, Doctor, to make sure we have all those things listed on WMAs, and maybe take that to working group, but goes on the record today as a request to look into WMA management.
I am certain that this list can be improved by my colleagues. I just wanted to introduce it into the process.
Is that the general thinking? Although
Something we've talked about for a long time.
I know Commissioner Swallows is ready to get on with that, but if we refine that list a little bit, it might do us better service to wait until March, and we kind of consult with our legal staff again with some of those things, with wildlife, and make sure that we've got all our ducks in a row. But certainly that's a needed concern.
Thank you all for your patience and
Thank you.
enduring.
Thank you,
wish.
Commissioner.
I got one more order, new business.
One more.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask that, and Commissioner Knott and I have talked to,
Speak up just a little.
Mr. Garland about this, but looking into proposal to push the early goose season back to the September 1st when it was originally implemented. Kenny and I have been talking with a lot of people in R2 districts, and there's overwhelming support for at least the Division of Wildlife to look into that. And then to piggyback on what Harry's talking about WMAs, I've had a meeting with our largest wildlife WMA, and so we've got a survey. I don't know if you want to kind of give us an update on what we're going to do on Peabody WMA.
Commissioner Fisher held a public meeting out there. I attended, and regional
Can you
staff.
all hear back there? Everybody hear? Everybody's hearing? Okay.
Back in November, there were several items and requests that came out of that meeting, everything from increased law enforcement and officers strictly for Peabody WMA, to potential hang tags for the area, along with the Peabody WMA permit that they have. We've worked with Brian Clark, been instrumental, and Brian Fisher's been instrumental in reviewing and commenting on. We've got a draft survey out there right now that we're going to do of all Peabody WMA permit holders going back 3 years. And kind of get feedback on that and see what their opinions are compared to the group we met with. And
I think the feedback might be good for what Harry just proposed us to look
might
at
tie
as
into
well.
some of that stuff directly. So that survey, there were 3 members of that group that the group kind of appointed as, to kind of comment on the survey. So we sent them a draft version of the survey. They're gonna get comments back to me hopefully by Monday. We'll get that survey out and, try to get some better information on what all Peabody permit holders think about the questions and concerns.
So you'll take care of that?
Yes, sir. And then on the early goose season, I just actually got a draft of that yesterday from John Brunges, so we will be
Bring
doing
that
a
to
survey
March,
on
you
that.
bring that to
Bring it
March.
Yes,
Good,
sir.
good.
I want to make a comment or two on that, and the reason we keep pushing for this is, it's the changing of farming practices that has brought this to very much be necessary. The different hybrids in corn that you have in the harvest times and earlier, higher moisture content which they harvest, there's a tremendous amount of grain harvested last week of August, the first week or so of September.
Increased prevalence of dryers.
And dryers and everything else. So, with all these things changing, once there's a large acreage of shelled corn within your district or within whatever area you're hunting, these birds have multiple opportunities, therefore they disperse and you cannot successfully hunt them anymore. So, a lot of us will have a lot of birds available there in August and early September, and then by the time we wait till this September 15th, it's just absolutely, your ability to hunt these birds is just almost completely gone. And so I believe that if our intent is to actually have where people can be successful, if we will move this forward, we will see a much increased opportunity for our sportsmen, as well as, if we're gonna call it a nuisance goose season, then that is to remove them. And so that will help you to be able to be successful in that.
How far forward are you guys wanting to move it?
September 1st is the earliest in the federal framework that it can be moved. So it used to be, I don't know how, maybe 12, 15 years ago that it came in on September 1st. And then.
You can't duck a goose.
So Chris, you're gonna look into that and come
You
to
can
March.
if you shoot doves
Any,
with steel shot.
any further new business? Okay, this is the time that we're gonna do.
I do have one thing.
Okay.
That's it. I'm saying this because Jamie's here and because of Edwin being here. Commissioner Fisher and I have been talking about wanting waste descriptions and I want to get on the record, and I want to get on record with Harry. Of bear, elk, and deer only, big game. And so we've been tossing things back and forth and working with
Chris?
We've been working with Brian Clark and just to get what's out there. But it will include Chris.
In reference to wanton waste.
Wanton waste and a description of just big game only.
Yeah,
Yes.
we don't have, Kentucky doesn't have a wanton waste policy. The only thing we're held to is the federal rules on waterfowl or migratory birds.
Okay, thank you. And in the commission's interest, again, in hearing from sportsmen, we're now ready for public comment. I have 4 people signed up for comment. I will tell you, even though we're doing this now in a little bit different format as we have started doing that here near the end of the meeting, we are affording you 3 minutes now instead of 2 minutes, because you might have 2 or 3 issues, you gotta get them all in instead of 1 at a time. So, I have 3 people. Charlie, do you wanna go first? Charlie? Okay, if you'll come up there, you need to state your name, where you're from, or what division, and if you're the spokesman for a group who have asked you to come here and speak on behalf of that group. So, please state your name for the record, and you've got 3 minutes, and we'll time it.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
My name's Charlie Zwischenberger. I live in Louisville, Kentucky, and I hunt in Anderson County. Wrote this, just gonna go ahead and read it. Don't want to ad-lib this situation. I'm a land steward promoting diverse ecology, which makes me a deer hunter. I love hunting and I love the natural world. I've become interested in the science and social responses to CWD, and I've concluded if you don't have it, you don't want it. I'm 28 years old. CWD has been around for 60 years or so, and has spread to 26 states and 4 or 5 countries. I want to hunt my whole life, and I want to pass it down to my future children. That's me asking for perpetual, beyond 100 years of healthy deer populations and elk. Kentucky doesn't have CWD, but we haven't really been called upon as stewards just yet. This disease is coming, and it's going to, over time, decimate our deer and elk, and by extension, our hunting culture. I'm not a scientist, nor do I pretend to be. What I understand is the prion protein causing CWD is 100% infectious to cervids and 100% fatal. Infectious prions persist in environments for years, even decades. It spreads, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but it spreads. At 20 to 30% infection rates, we see population level effects. In the West, we're already seeing this. There is no cure and no vaccine. Currently in Kentucky, we bait, causing unnatural accumulations of deer and elk. Baiting increases the carrying capacity of land. We've made the equivalent of metropolitan cities in our hunting properties. When infectious disease hits a city, it blossoms. We allow one hunter, one buck. Bucks are 2 to 3 times more likely to carry CWD because of their social and nomadic habits. The hunter in Kentucky needs to know what's ahead. Unpopular policy shifts, changes in hunting culture, deciding whether he or she will eat or serve to his or her family a CWD positive deer. Kentucky Fish and Wildlife needs to know what's ahead. Rethinking our stance on CWD, zero tolerance, changing laws now, and the blowback from the public. Baiting, herd reduction, younger bucks throughout the state, carcass disposal by the state or through education. We need these changes and we need them now. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. I want to assure you that the commission feels like the department is way ahead of the issue, and I want to explain that to you a little bit. I was trying to think how many years ago Karen Waldrop addressed the legislature about this. Was it about 8 or 10 years ago? Do you remember how long it was? I'm going to say 8 to 10 years ago, our deputy commissioner at the time addressed the legislation about this problem. We have followed the AFWA suggestions, which is a big, thick manual about how to address this. Our Division of Wildlife has addressed this. Our veterinarians are. Our commissioner has done this. The legislature, as a matter of fact, yesterday had our Kentucky legislature. We don't have a reported case of CWD yet, but the legislators yesterday addressed this in committee, and the new secretary was at that meeting. So everybody is aware of that potential, and we do have an action plan. So I will say on behalf of the department and the cabinet and the legislators, Kentucky is not sticking their hand in the sand hoping it'll go away. They are actively working on this, and the commission applauds their efforts to make an attempt at keeping ahead of CWD. So thank you for your sportsman concern and for your ambition for hunting the rest of your life. But believe me, that issue is on the forefront of what the Department of Fish and Wildlife is addressing. So thank you for your
I'll make just a couple more on that. So we've been talking about this for quite a bit. We actually have a deer working group concentrating on CWD. So there's been a lot of people in this room, Gabe, Chris, that we're talking about actions that we can take and what the department's already doing. Colonel Gibson sent an army of officers down on the Tennessee border to patrol the state lines when the Tennessee season opened to prevent them from bringing back infected deer. So the department's doing a lot already on this, and I think this is one of the probably our largest topics that we've been discussing over the last couple of years as a commission. So the things about the incinerators to burn the drop-off locations, all that's right now currently in discussion and in the works. So.
Thank you, Charlie, and spread that concern with other sportsmen that you know. Pete, do you want to make a comment?
Our biggest obstacle is education. Educate your fellow sportsmen.
Yep, that's it. Pass this on to other sportsmen that we have an action plan, and for them to be concerned about it, don't put their head in the sand. Okay, Pete?
And legislative.
Yes.
He is an expert on
Hang on, everybody. Okay, Pete, go ahead.
Pete Blanford, QDMA. I would just like to make a comment that what you're doing with this quarterly plans, I like, and the splitting the commission in the mornings and the committee in the evening, it does give us more time to get with our members and discuss what's going on.
You're gonna have a minimum of 90 days, people.
Right, right. Where before 8 or 9 meetings, it was wearing
30,
me out.
maybe 30, maybe 30 days.
But the only concern I have is on the working committee, the working group. I was in a working group about 3 years ago on overpopulation of deer in Zone 1 counties. It was one of the best endeavors I have ever been involved in. We had hunters, row croppers. Row cropper takes a different perspective of overpopulated deer than the deer hunter. It got us to understand each other. But what I was concerned with is on the working groups is that we need to have shareholders in that group and not be a closed department only group.
Right, right.
I just want the assurance from you guys that that's the way it's gonna work.
Yes, I'll go ahead, Commissioner.
Well, I'll tell you what I think fellowship when I think about a work group. You're not gonna have a parliamentary procedure.
No voting.
You're gonna bring people in and you're all gonna have the opportunity to talk. So I think a work group is akin to fellowship. You can say they're two different things, but I'm going to a sportsman's club meeting tonight. We're gonna have fellowship, we're gonna talk about a lot of fish and wildlife issues. So if we're talking deer, QDMA is gonna have a seat at the table if we're having a working group meeting. But also say to you, don't forget about us. If you're having a meeting and you want representation there, just make sure.
Well, Ralph does a great job.
Yeah, just make sure you reach out to us. Yeah. But thanks for the comments.
Okay.
And I've certainly, because I've talked to a couple sportsmen and a couple of presidents of associations, I understand the concern for still being involved. But believe me, you've already seen the amount of transparency the commissioner has brought with his administration, and I think you're going to see this is going to even be better, because we're going to be able to concentrate a group of commissioners and a group of sportsmen who are really concerned about a specific issue, instead of the shotgun approach to the committee where it's overwhelmingly, we got 8 or 10 issues where some of you may be concerned only about one of those issues. Well, those working groups should help that. But we're not going to close those working groups off to sportsmen. And you've still got the second half of the meeting, just like a committee meeting, that we got the second dose of it. So it's going to work out. I just ask for your patience, and we may need to tweak this a little bit, but I'm asking for the sportsman's patience, and don't condemn it before it gets started. So that's my request, and I've made that request. Okay, Mr. Nybert, do you want to go next, or Colonel Abel, whichever one of you wants to talk to?
I'm actually going to defer. I do have one thing to bring up.
So, here we go, everybody. I've got, go ahead and please state.
Edwin Nybert, President of League of Kentucky Sportsmen. Based on conversations with Dr. Swinnard today, I'm going to defer my judgment until March. Give this a shot, but the way it was rolled out, lack of communication is horrible, guys. I just want to state that. It's hard for us to make judgment as sportsmen, as organizations, whenever we get information 2 days before we're going to have a discussion on it. That being said, the one thing that has been brought to my attention by a houndsman group that recently joined the league, they're interested in getting our rabbit season lined up with every other state around us. I know it's been brought up before. I haven't heard any discussion of it, but they would like you all to take that into consideration.
Have you all, has anybody from that group talked to Wildlife or talked to Chris or approached?
I doubt very seriously if they have. They're newly formed. They're two newly
I
formed
might
organizations.
suggest that they get in touch with the Wildlife Division, or go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Get in touch with the Wildlife Division and maybe explain to them or find out what the season is presently and what their concern might be, or get in touch with the district commissioner where that issue's
Well, it's all over the
prevalent.
state right now. We close the 31st, and I think that they're more concerned that right now they're going up to Indiana and Illinois and hunting all the way through February, and they'd like to be able to not have to drive 6 or 8 hours.
My other suggestion is, as many of the sportsmen's groups have done, you can mass email 9 commissioners. You can push one button and 9 gentlemen will have the issue if somebody types it out, and we'll have it now for a longer period of time than we did 30 days before.
And I love that. I wish our legislature would do the same thing.
Well, that'd be good, but thank you, Mr. Nybert. Go ahead.
While Evan's up there, recently he called me about the decision his board has made. They sold their elk tag, the commission elk tag. They sold their elk tag for $15,000. They worked with Ducks Unlimited and got them to match it. They worked with the Wild Turkey Federation and got them to match it.
Well, Wild Turkey's still in the works.
Still in the works.
Everything is on par right now.
So, then the board voted to give the total sum of that money to the Ballard County Refuge Project, and that's in my district, and I'd just like to thank you.
Yes, sir.
And
We're meeting with Brian to roll that, how we're gonna roll that money out to you guys next month.
Please express our thanks to the league for that big contribution.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Knight.
Colonel
Abel.
Colonel Peter and him, Paul. Colonel Retired Mike Abel, Kentucky Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. Larry Richards is flying his Learjet for rich people today and asked me to also represent Spark Club International Kentucky and chapter. First thing I want to do is I want to thank Ralph. He's been exceptionally consistent in having meetings in the 3rd District, and he took some heat from Sportsman last night because we just weren't sure what we were going to see today. And the biggest issue that we collectively had was the details. And gentlemen, you've painted those details not just in black and white, but in color. And I can easily take this back to the Sportsman and not just put a fire extinguisher on their angst, but I can probably hand them a sundae with a cherry on top. So I want to congratulate you. Been a lot of processes in my life, and this rolled out way better this morning than I expected. I do have one quick question about working groups. Working groups, by their very nature, have to be somewhat insular and closed. I understand your fellowship comment very well, Rich. If we appoint someone, let's just say we appoint Doug as the head of the new Ohio River Access and Enforcement Working Group, and some sportsman then wants to be part of that, they can just email Doug. Doug says, hey, we're meeting at such and such Dairy Queen, because you said he knows where they're all at.
Yeah, I've been all
Such
there.
Dairy Queen in the 8th District, and that is then open to anybody.
Yes, that's the concept.
So that would be great. Okay,
That's
so
the
that's the
concept.
number one concern if we have working groups, because like the deer working group had people that were invited, but there wasn't necessarily a method for extra folks to come in if they had a concern.
I think the way I understand how the commission wants to do this, we might form that working group of 5 individuals, 2 or 3 department people, get together and kind of get their heads together, then open it up. So the first meeting or 2 might be a closed, as you're concerned about, somewhat of a closed session, but then open it up and find out who needs to be contacted, and open it up to, you need to contact them. But there's not gonna be any hidden meetings or anything happen without the purview of the sportsman.
But those meetings will,
Hang on,
Sorry,
go
I
ahead.
didn't mean to interrupt.
Did you have something
I'm
you want?
taking your,
Go
but
ahead.
to that point, those meetings would be posted. We could say, hey, we're gonna meet on this particular thing, it's posted online, this date is out there.
Yeah, you can put on
So
there.
that there's notice given where we're gonna be and when we're gonna meet.
But I do want to also add this. I'll end up working with QDMA because they'll call me to come to a meeting and we'll talk about things. So let's make sure we don't get this confused, because we're all working with stakeholders and people are talking about their respective issues across the state. So if we do have a work group that is coming from the commission, we're going to work just the way we have here today, and we're going to talk about the Ohio River. We're going to put those commission members on there, so the public's going to be aware of what we're trying to do. But keep in mind, we're meeting with a lot of stakeholders for different circumstances.
I totally get it. That's the cost of doing business. And my concern to Ralph last night was that the working groups would not be closed. So if you appoint a chair and it's published who the chair is, we have y'all's numbers and emails. I can call and ask Harry, I can call and ask Brian, hey, can I come attend your meeting? And it would be then open.
Or if you're not sure, Colonel, contact one and say, can you tell me who's on this new working group for
That's
such and
exactly
such?
what I'm gonna do.
Then you email him. You email.
That's what I'm suggesting, Todd. I can tell all the sportsmen when these working groups come up and or they are appointed, you can just email whoever's in charge and participate to your heart's content.
The only thing I would like to recommend to whoever's gonna be in charge of the working groups is be careful about making it just an entirely open meeting. I think our goal is to try to get representatives from each, so you have a smaller group, but you're getting everybody's input.
Right, that's why I'm not recommending it ends up like this, because you're not gonna get any work done.
That's right, that's way.
I'm with you.
Okay.
We kept your Peabody group about as big as it could have possibly been and got any work done. We're there for 3.5 hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, what else you got, Carl? I'm trying to hold you to
The
time.
stopping of any late season cow hunts whatsoever, including the quota hunt we just talked about, is 100% supported by my membership, which is growing by one member a day, by the way, which is really rapid growth, and Kentucky Indian Safari Club International. That's any late season cow hunt.
And the league as well.
And then one quick question on finance, and I don't see Lisa, so I might have to ask Rich maybe. We're looking for shovel-ready project to do big finance or big fundraising event, and our national headquarters asked us to be about access. Doug, you got an access project that looks like it needs $104,000. That could take a couple years. If we had a fundraising event and donated money, but that pier's not going to be built for 3 years, can we earmark that money to Doug's project?
Yeah, that's a great initiative, and also fisheries, they can get a federal grant if they plan and they get it in our budget, and so essentially we could, with some projects, we could get 75% federal funding, and we could get groups to pay the 25%.
But specifically, my question is, because I've got to go back to my national headquarters in Missoula and ask their support on this. If we do a big fundraiser annually, we don't want to keep the money. We want to donate it because one of our biggest mission areas is access. Doug's got a fabulous access project. If I can only get him $2 grand this year, but next year I'm getting 10 over time, can I send that? Can it go to him and it not be burned up with dove field seed or something?
Absolutely, and it'll be
Okay.
just like what we're gonna do with the league on these dollars for the elk tag.
All right.
I don't
Thank
know
you.
of a better access than the third largest lake in the state.
We're not even friends, and I'm going to give you money.
Yeah, well, we're getting to be better friends. I can tell you that. You hand out money.
I might add at this point too that the Colonel got in touch with me about, he had a list of 8 projects that his group has completed, that we're back to volunteerism again, and he's gonna make that available to give all the commissioners all their 8 projects that they've committed to and that they have completed. At the March meeting, he's gonna break his line. So this volunteerism on behalf of the sportsmen is greatly appreciated.
We're doing a big one in his district on 7th of March, and a big one in your district on 7th.
I'm
8th
scheduled.
of February and 7th of March in your district.
The other thing, Doctor, when we're talking about money, the league has license plate money available for all kinds of projects. Anybody that's got something, don't hesitate to pick up the phone, call. We can always ask. The worst they can do is tell us no.
I can tell you, with this budgetary restraint that's on us, we are gonna have to depend more on outside help. And we appreciate those from Sportsman's Group. Believe me, they appreciate, the department appreciates it greatly. Anybody else that did not sign up that wanted to speak?
Ralph, did you have a question?
No, I was just gonna
I'm
let you
sorry,
know,
Carl.
I'd met with Nick Hart and we talked about doing a project
Nice.
on Yellow Banks WMA.
Thank you, Colonel. Okay, anybody else?
Yes, sir.
This should be our last one, cause
I forgot to sign up, running late, though.
Okay.
Dealing with some hospital
we'll
stuff,
forgive you
so-
this time.
Hospital stuff all the time, hospital stuff.
Sorry.
Jamie Gray, Sportsman. 4 problems I see, and I wanna have a little bit of conundrum with some of them. Resolutions that was approved last June, I have not seen no movement on either one of them, as far as, and where they fall in on the working group.
Can you tell me what resolution you're?
Wanton waste.
Wanton waste.
Brian Clark is working on those for us.
Yes,
Elk. The guide,
some of the commissioners were concerned about wanton waste too, and I think that is being worked on.
the guide and baiting, resolution. I've heard nothing about it. So does this fall into working groups, or does this move forward past a working group?
No.
Those resolutions that's been passed prior year go into and get moved forward. Wanton waste needs to happen now. I'm tired of seeing deer laying on the side of the road next to my farm with backstraps cut out, heads cut off, and thrown in a ditch. 4 year before last, 3 this year. It's ludicrous. It needs to stop. I'm asking y'all, I'm imploring y'all, do something. Do something.
Well, Jamie, we just mentioned about wanton waste, and I even tagged you on that. And secondly, you're looking, I think people forget the process, which has been a big, whatever leaves this table is a 2-year process. And that's just the way it is. I mean,
And there's
but
no
we are working
guarantee
at it.
if we pass something that it's gonna get put into law.
Yeah.
Not at all.
If we pass a resolution here, it has to go to we're an advisory body. we pass a resolution, it goes to commissioner, commissioner sends it to the secretary. If everybody approves it, they send it to the legislature.
Officially
and,
review committee.
To the A&R review committee, which is a joint Senate and House committee. They have till hell freezes over to act on it.
And longer than that now.
And
But
longer-
it was passed in June of last year, so it should have went into committee this January.
No, sir.
I told you on the
Yes,
phone we were
there-
gonna put it,
there are-
we were gonna start handling it in January this year.
There are public comments at each one of those things that last 90 days. And when it goes to the A&R committee, it's up to the chairman of the A&R committee. And then when it goes to A&R committee, like right now, the nighttime coyote regulation that we passed, the nighttime coyote, they've got a competing resolution, and, you know, they're not doing it. The hunter ed thing that we passed, the A&R committee said, despite all the, they said, we don't wanna hear your research. We don't think this is a good idea, and don't bring it back anytime soon. So, when I came up here to work, I thought that my mission would be entirely different than it was. You know, I mean, all my life, I've been in a position of when I say do something, it gets done. I'm in a position now where, you know, I could see the world was gonna end tomorrow, and I could change it, and it wouldn't happen. You know, it took 2 years to put a culvert pipe in the road that goes into the Ballard County Refuge. I mean, it just, it's like pushing chain. And I know you're frustrated because I'm frustrated. If you'll email me, my email is HW. If you'll email me, I've got somewhere what happens when we pass a resolution, all the steps that it goes through, and you'll see why my frustration level is high and yours is high.
Well, it was, you know, it was at the league meeting for all 9 districts last year, June, it all passed 2 resolutions. And so I was assuming that this January there was gonna be focus groups or something, started something moving, going into committees or something, you know, I ain't heard nothing. And, you know, it's frustrating to me because when I'm sitting here watching deer lay on the side of the ground, I mean, y'all gotta share some implement with that that's like, this has gotta stop.
So we've got wildlife looking on them right now. I think they're currently researching all the other surrounding state laws, because there's some pros and cons about just putting a wanton waste law into place. So
That law that I wrote, that wanton waste law, come from 26 other states. I mimicked a lot of it. So there's not a lot of extra verbiage in there that needs to be ridiculed and thrown out. I mean, this is copied and mimicked from other states. So I tried to simplify it for our state to match what we would need in our application, but follow the footprint from other states, so it would kind of be territorial for other areas. All right, let's move on to something else. Peabody. You talk about Peabody, and you talk about native grasses there. You quit burning native grasses, and you started disting them because of lespedesian. There's 3 chemicals that will control lespedesian. I've done it on my farm. It won't hurt the grass, and you can continue burning. The best way to control native grass is burning. It's the only way to control native grass. Y'all quit native grass burning, and you started disting because of lespedesian problems. You gotta find the chemical. I can name 3 of them that will kill it, and go back to burning. You're not gonna control it. Quail populations by not burning native grasses. The other issue was Daniel Boone Forest is starting to do logging. They're having forum meetings and stuff about that, and so I'm curious about Redbird. Are we gonna do any logging in Redbird? Redbird's a wildlife management area.
It's owned by Danny Boone. Yeah, we're working with Boone to identify some areas to do some habitat projects, where they include.
There's a lot of areas in eastern Kentucky that need work. But it doesn't need to be clean sweep.
Right.
It needs to be mosaic, where you do a 10 or 5 acre spot here, a 3 acre spot here. You know, if you go in and try to just clear cut, you're gonna have public all over you, because I deal with it with my own family in some areas. They say, well, I don't wanna cut them big trees, because look at, you know, how easy I can move about. And you can go to a clear cut like in Michigan, where I hunt at and for grouse, and I mean, I see a lot of grouse up there, but you can't hardly move through it. So people that's out hiking and stuff, they see that and they're like, I don't want this. So they're gonna oppose anything you propose out there for cutting. So if you do it in smaller bunches and scatter it around, they're still gonna have mobility, and they're not going to be saying, quit cutting all our trees down. You know, so there's gotta be a way to mitigate that, to make it to where it's manageable for everybody, and we don't make other people mad, and we can get our progress done, wildlife management, wildlife habitat, because we need habitat.
Thank you for your comments. If you, what district are you in? Which of our districts? Sixth district. I wonder if I can get you to email Commissioner Eaton with those concerns and spell out some of the things or some of your suggestions, even the 3 chemicals. If you don't care, would you email him those concerns, and the Commissioner Eaton can look into those for you?
One more thing. Thank you for speaking up about CWD. We need to stop all transfer in-state and out-of-state of moving of cervix. There is no live testing for CWD.
They met with agriculture. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Actually, there is live testing for CWD, it's just not approved.
Exactly right. It's only 30% accurate.
We've given you extra time. That means when I'm talking, I get to finish.
Sure.
Okay. So, we have joint control in this state over captive cervid farms. A lot of the stuff belongs to agriculture. We meet with agriculture, we meet with law enforcement, we have some problems. All deer that come into this state are supposed to come from Indiana, and they're supposed to have been residents of Indiana, and Indiana certifies them. The ag believes that's the truth, I don't. What we have asked them to do is issue permits to transporters, 10 of them. Anybody that's caught with a deer in their horse trailer without a transporter is subject to law enforcement. We have asked for our law enforcement officers to be able to deal with those people. They currently cannot. And so we're trying to do the things that we can do for transport, but we don't have any control over that. We don't, you know, if I was the king, we first of all, if I was the king, we wouldn't have captive cervid farms because of the high risk.
Well, I commend you for that, because
we wouldn't be shipping sperm into the state. We wouldn't be using live scents, even though that's low risk, it's still risk. And we wouldn't be baiting. That's something that the sportsmen oppose radically, is to stop baiting. So we got to get the sportsmen to say don't bait. I've got some pictures on my phone of leased places in western Kentucky where they are putting out bait with a backhoe bucket full of corn.
Yes.
And you know,
It's ludicrous.
Up to me, that kind of stuff would stop, and I'd use only spread baiter. But a lot of this stuff's not up to me, and a lot of it, there's no political climate, even among sportsmen, to do. So we're doing everything we can. You can only bring a deboned carcass into the state. You can't bring a head, everything's gotta be cleaned, you know, that's stuff we have jurisdiction over. But we don't have any jurisdiction over the movement of cervids in the state, in those captive cervid farms. And you've probably seen that map, it was in the QDMA of Pennsylvania, where they've got the state in white and it turns blue, where they track the movement of captive cervids. We don't even, in this state, we don't even know how many captive cervids there are. And so we can't compare how many were brought in under legal permit to how many were there. We don't have that kind of information, and we can't get it because it's ag. But we are working with ag, and the legislature, this week we spent 3 days over there, and there's some movement there, and they're asking ag to work with us, and we believe a lot of these things are gonna happen. But, you know, when you have a large crowd outside and they take away the Constitution and make me the king, I promise you the next day I will fix all of it.
Lord forbid they don't do that, but anyway, I sent 4 letters to Ryan Forbes about this. Okay, I'm trying to get movement on it.
for the
Thank
next
you.
trial.
Oh,
Thank you for
that's
your
where,
time.
that's where the letters need to go, with
Yes.
Brian Corp. I sent him a note yesterday of how many hunting licenses were sold and how many captive survey farms there were, and asked him if he could count the votes.
108, is that correct?
There's 104.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All our public comment time is about done. You want to say something else?
I just wanted to make in my talk, the response was that I was not aware of the emergency measures or the current laws. I am, and I've read those, as well as Aqua, and I come from that perspective.
Sure.
Okay, so I wanted that to be understood.
We got it.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for your concern. I would be remiss if I did not mention, and many of the issues we talked about are legal issues. I wanna welcome General Counsel. Thank you for your input and the future input that you will have for the commission. And I wanna thank our legal staff who is invaluable to the commission, and I can tell you, speaking from the department, we appreciate them so much. So on their behalf, I wanna tell the General Counsel, thank you for all they do for us, and thank you for your patience and tolerance with issues that we bring, that the sportsmen have, they bring to us, and then we'll bring to you. So welcome and thank you. Mr. Secretary, thank you again, excuse me for interrupting you all. Thank you again for your presence. Captive servants. Thank you again for your input today. Thank you for your presence and coming to visit with us and to field the questions and ask so many great questions. I told many of the commissioners, I said in my meeting in there, I was greatly impressed with the background information he had on the department and the great questions he asked both about the commission and the department. So thank you so much. And I also wanted to say, on behalf of the sportsmen represented today and the commission, when you get ready to further this knowledge of the outdoors that you didn't quite get enough of, these guys will voluntarily take you duck hunting, deer hunting, wherever you want to go fishing. These guys are already shaking their heads. You tell us when you want to be somewhere, and these sportsmen will take you, or some of the commission members. So
He's
thank
already
you.
agreed to go catfishing.
There's no season in it.
Did you say catfishing? Catfish noodling.
Noodling. Where you stick your hand up in
Yeah, I don't even wanna do that.
I've seen that on YouTube.
Don't worry about inviting me. I am not going to do that.
But I do want to go
I'll
to
watch.
see the wild boar trapping in Henry County.
Okay, we'll make that happen. We'll make that happen. Okay, any other new business, or we finished the old business? Okay, before I entertain a motion to go into closed session, I want to read the thing that I have to read at each meeting. All meetings of a quorum of the members of any public agency at which any public business is discussed or at which any action is taken by the agency shall be public meetings, open to the public at all times except for specific items listed in KRS 61-810. The commission has business today that will require entering into closed session. Prior to entering into closed session, KRS 61-815 requires notice of the general nature of the business to be discussed in closed session, the reason for the closed session, and the provisions of Kentucky Revised Statute 61-810 that authorizes it. In today's session, we'll be discussing a personnel matter. The session will be closed to maintain the privacy of the employee. The closed session is authorized under KRS 61-810, Section 1F. No final action will be taken in the session, and no other business will be discussed other than what I have just described. So for those of you worrying that we're going to talk about captive servants, we will not do that in closed session. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
I have a motion from Dr. Carlos. I need a second from Commissioner Bond. That was a second. That wasn't a question. That was a second. All in favor going into closed session signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Closed session. Thank you all for your attendance today. We will come out of closed session if you run up the team.
Can I go to the bathroom?
Yeah, we're going to take a break.
No. I can't stand it anymore.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Chris.